Okay, everybody, let me now officially welcome you to this wonderful session with Pam Cayton in the framework of the Big Love Festival and celebrating 40 years of universal education. Today, Pam will be offering us an introduction to the Creating Compassionate Cultures program that she developed at Tara Redwood School, the first universal education school in the world since 1989. She started the school inspired by her teacher, Lama Thubten Yeshe. I had the immense fortune of visiting her school back in 2015 and get absolutely inspired by her wonderful work and generosity, both at the professional and personal level. So it is a pleasure to me to be presenting her today. Apart from the translations, we will be enjoying Pam's presentation for about 40 minutes, and then we will have some time for her kindly answering some questions. So if you have questions during the presentation, please write them down in the chat, and I will be copying them to then transfer them to Pam. Okay, without no further ado, Pam Cayton. Thank you.
Thank you, Ceci.
Thank you.
So I don't know how many of you are in North America. I don't think so many, because today is actually one of the biggest holidays celebrated here, traditionally, Thanksgiving. And I think what we're going to do is just begin our session here together with thinking a little bit about, reflecting a bit on gratitude. And one of the things we use at Tara Redwood School and with Creating Compassionate Cultures, just a tool that we use is what we call the gong. Some people call it a singing bowl. And I'm sure you're all familiar with this. So we're going to begin with just sort of relaxing. I mean, we've all been probably busy, different time zones we're all in. So we get just a moment to relax together. And I think it's always a nice way to start. And we call this, we usually refer to it, I mean, when we first started the school in 1989, we didn't talk about meditation because what we were creating was a secular program. So we referred to this, that's become extremely popular and more mainstream now, mindfulness. We referred to it as centering. So it's about finding our center, sort of bringing our focus and our energy back to our center. We talk about, refer to our center as being here in this heart zone, really connecting with this place in us. And so we're going to begin with a centering using our gong. All right. So everybody sitting comfortably. You can sit comfortably, back straight is helpful. Usually I go through those just about posture, you know, chin slightly tilted toward the chest, not looking up, not too far down, just slightly tilted, helps to keep our mind more clear. We're just going to do a little focus on our breath. Then I'll lead you with just a little reflection on gratitude, okay? Eyes can be gently closed, not too tight, not squeezing tight. Hands relaxed on your lap or knees. So if you notice your mind wandering from your breath, gently bring it back to your breath, entering through your nose and leaving through your nose. Nice, gentle, rhythmical breathing. So let's just take a moment to reflect on gratitude. So think to yourself, I am grateful for. And what comes to your mind? So notice how you feel, just having taken a moment to center and reflect on gratitude. How does it feel? So we know there's a huge amount of research now on the benefits of just gratitude alone, let alone a lot of the other practices that FDCW and universal education have brought forward into the world and focused on developing. Gratitude alone just increases those or releases those feel-good hormones, the oxytocin, which is like a bonding chemical. So when you think about things that you really feel grateful for, it fills your body and your nervous system with feel-good chemicals, serotonin, and it decreases the cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So there's a lot of benefits from that. Even physically, we feel we're more healthy. It affects our health, our blood pressure, and of course, ultimately, of course, our quality of life, our happiness. So it's a good thing to practice. And gratitude is something that we really bring into the school. I think that it's important to note at this point that what we try to work with the children on is really helping them to connect with these feelings and through their thoughts, these feelings through their thoughts. So critical thinking is a very big part of what we do in our approach to education. And critical thinking actually happens to be one of the 4 most important skills, apparently, for the 21st century, for children to develop in the 21st century. And this came from research. Linda Darling Hamilton at Stanford did this research, and these most important skills got synthesized down to specifically 4 C's. They call the 4 C's, or I call the 4 C's, because creating compassionate cultures has 3. And we added a 5th C to what Stanford came up with. But the 4 C's are, and I often ask the parents, whoever I'm teaching, or the teachers, the people in my program, what do you think those 4 C's are? And what is the 5th C that we added? There's a lot of us here. Some of you could have a go at it, I guess, but I can tell you, we'll start by just me giving you a little bit more information. So the 4 C's, creativity is one. So really being able to think creatively. I mean, we're not in a time in history where children sit in desks in rows and the teacher gives them all the information. That kind of education actually is not a popular way or a most effective way for children to learn. Most effective is through experience, right? We learn best through experience. So at Tara, we try to make our education as experiential as possible. And this is not only for children, but for people of all ages. We have to feel it. We need to experience it, right? For it to really add meaning or grounded in meaning. And I'm sorry for the little ding ding. If you can hear that, that is messages coming in, and I'm not quite sure how to stop that. Sorry. So the C's, creativity, thinking outside the box. It's a whole new realm that opened up with us with technology. So definitely education needed to change, right? And adapt. Critical thinking. So really being able to think critically about things, using your mind and the children, engaging the children in discussion so that they really think about things. It's a little bit like debate, you know, let's keep discussing and questioning. Use that questioning mind. And to go back to my teacher, Lama Yeshe, who really inspired me and guided me with this education, universal education, you know, Lama used to say often, check up, dear. And it's like, you know, remember one of the things that, you know, I'm a student of Buddhism. And one of the things that really inspired me about Buddhism was, you know, that, you know, the Buddha taught, don't accept things just because I say them. Check up, you know, examine them as though a goldsmith would examine and really check the quality and the purity of the gold. So in essence, that's that critical thinking. And to teach children, to engage children in that way. And as they come up with the answers and the realizations, it's like those aha moments, right? Where they're suddenly like, oh, wow, yes, I get it. You know, so engaging children and learning through critical thinking is extremely important. Collaboration, working together and learning to work together, you know, as a team. You know, in empowering each person in the group, in the classroom, in the family, in the workspace. And that kind of collaboration, being open to listen to another person's experience and thoughts and consider them. There's another one, C, consider, consideration. There's lots of C's we've come up with. Usually when I ask parents or teachers, whoever's in the room, and we're talking about this, like, we come up with we could make a whole huge book of C's that are helpful. It's interesting, I never realized that, but it is true, communication. So having that really respectful communication, open thinking, open-mindedness and thinking with a collaboration is another one of the C's. And we added the fifth C, which you probably have all guessed maybe what that is. Seeing as we are creating compassionate cultures, it is compassion. Compassion. And as His Holiness, one of His Holiness Dalai Lama's quotes is, you know, that that compassion is not a luxury. It is survival. Humanity, that is how humanity will survive, through compassion, or words to that effect. So, you know, especially in these days, I mean, I think that that's an extremely important quality for us to be nurturing in children. And in order to nurture it in children, we need to nurture it in ourselves. Is it not true? Is it not true? So the greatest teaching, and research shows this, is through observation. Children learn so much through observation. So we, as the adults in their lives, need to be modeling. We need to be walking the talk. And in this way too, children are incredible teachers for us, right? They are teachers for us. I've learned so much from working with children and from having my own children, raising my children, because they see it and they say it like they see it. They don't pretend. They pretend about a lot of things, but that'll let you know when you're not walking the talk. So in that way, they really help us to be able to be true, you know, to our thoughts and practice what we preach, so to speak. A quote, to quote one of Lama Yeshe's, what Lama Yeshe said about the teacher, I think is really actually profound. I think a lot of what Lama left with us in his talks that he gave on universal education, his thoughts on universal education, they're all such incredible, you know, offer incredible inspiration and guidance for us as teachers and as parents and just as human beings in the world. I have this saying where I say, you know what, we're all teachers, because what we do is actually giving imprints. People are seeing us, they're hearing us, and they're being affected to some degree or other because of interconnection. Is it not true? So everybody, we are all affecting each other. And in that way, and we're affecting the world. And in that way, we are all teachers for each other, just like the children are teachers for us and we are for them, right? So in doing this work and developing this approach to education over more than 30 years now, so I first founded this preschool in 1989, and since then it grew into an elementary school, and it was about 2000, year 2000, from 89 to 2000, where I was really sort of formulating and observing what the children were responding to and how I could possibly sort of light that spark of kindness in them, the spark that came from the side of the child, the wish to be kind, right? And the spontaneous then action of kindness. How could I spark that wish? How could I spark that little light in the children's mind? And I knew it wasn't filling empty pots, right? Just feeding them information and telling them, now, you should be kind because I said so. That's not the way to guide children and to awaken that kindness, that innate goodness. And so I came from this approach of innate goodness, innate qualities. And now, of course, research, we're in this amazing time, right, where latest science and neuroscience is really collaborating and supporting these ancient contemplative traditions. So that it's an amazing time. And I think it's what Lama Yeshe back in those early days sort of foresaw, the coming together of science, psychology, spirituality, all together, coming together to support each other. And that's what's happening right now in the world. It's a very exciting time in that way, where who would have thought, mindfulness would be mainstream by now? Although it is 30 years since I started. And back then we used to do the little gong. We didn't call it the mindfulness gong, as I said, but we've been doing that since, for more than 30 years now. Anyway, there's lots more to say on that, but going back to the teacher. So to quote Lama Yeshe, teachers have an enormous responsibility. They are the protectors of the human mind. By nurturing and developing the minds of their students, they are actually affecting the way the world is. It's profound. And it's true. And like I said, we are all teachers. Actually, we are all teachers. Because what we're doing is affecting each other, and it's affecting the world. Okay, it is. So how to awaken this? What I observed, I moved to this country, to United States. I'm not from the United States. I'm from Australia. And I traveled and worked in Nepal for 10 years. And my first two children were born there. And we moved to California. My husband's from California. And we moved here in 1988. And my two young children were just 3 and 16 months. And, when I started to look around and really get to know a little bit more about this culture and about the education systems available, of course, none of them came up to my expectation and my wish for my children. And it's when all of what Lama Yeshe had said about universal education, it just was exactly what I was observing. And I realized then, okay, maybe I just have to start something. And so at that time, we were on a property, which is where we still are at, and Ceci has been there, and maybe some others have visited Land of Medicine Buddha in California. And originally that property, Lama had wanted that property to be purchased for universal education. So it seemed, okay, here we are, let's do it. So that's when the preschool started. And it was really just seeing, as another thing that Lama had said, was that the present education system is not up to the intelligence of the people and the children. And I could see that, and I had lived in Nepal and seen these young children being so, my goodness, they would study pretty much they'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and then be studying and working and didn't go to bed until 10 o'clock. So that's one extreme. But what I saw with the education system here and with the young children is that it was like the bar was being held too low. These children are capable of far more. But that was at a time when generally developmental psychologists were saying that children sort of under the age of about 6 or 7 couldn't really develop empathy. So that was one thing that really struck me. And another thing was just observing how children were, not being guided to be able to take responsibility. They were not given responsibilities. And children love to have responsibilities, actually. But the parents didn't somehow realize that they were capable of taking responsibilities. And so that was another thing. The other thing that I noticed was that children generally had a lack of gratitude. They didn't seem to really have any thought of sort of even saying thank you, and certainly not please. And then I get back to it. Okay, I'd go back to, well, when I was a sort of a baby boomer, so in the 60s and 70s, we kind of threw out those expectations that you should do it because I said so. So that wasn't a good reason for us to do anything, really, and to follow what our parents or our teachers said. It was more we had to understand why. Why be thankful? Why say please? So it was getting to that root of the why and to awaken that in the mind of the child. And I could see that this general approach to parenting and even education was not awakening that awareness in children. So children generally it seemed that there was more of a focus on the me and me first in this culture. Me first, not on others or me being a part of a collective, right? And so that was causing a lot of issues of behavioral issues with children and children in their families and at school. And this continues, it's very much a trend. And so this focus on oneself and the fact that children we were sort of underestimating the abilities of young children and children in general. Oh, they're too young to do that. Oh, they wouldn't understand that. So we weren't actually giving them the opportunity to develop that sense of awareness and what they had to be grateful for. And we weren't empowering them with the ability to be helping out as a part of a team. We were just like, oh, we do it for them. Or we sit them down and we give them their food, So what I started to realize, well, why have they now? This is why I could see that, generally speaking, children had this sense of entitlement. You just serve me. You give me what I want. And if you don't give me what I want, then I'm going to scream for it. So it wasn't actually developing these attitudes or these qualities in the children to develop their potential as human beings, to develop their awareness of why be kind, right? So we started very simply at the school with helping to awaken their awareness to what they had to be grateful for with their snack. So we started to look at, where did your snack come from? Wow, how did it get here on your plate, right? So this interconnection of what I have actually came from a lot of different people, a lot of energy. And a lot of people had to come together to create this snack right now in front of me. So you'd ask children, where did this snack come from? So as example, right? Oh, it came from my mom. Oh, your mom. Okay, thank you, mom. Where did mom get those crackers from? Where'd they come from? They come from the store? The store. Okay. Thank you, storekeepers. Where did the store get the crackers from? So critical thinking, right? Really thinking about critical thinking, cause and effect, interconnection. So all those sort of, that awareness of the complexity and the amazing aha of this simple crackers on my plate, crackers and cheese on my plate, and the cows, the cheese coming from the cows, and tracing that back, right? So we wouldn't give them the answers, we'd ask the questions. Ask the questions, critical thinking. And so when they become aware themselves, it takes root at a deeper level. It's their experience. It's not just our telling them, right? So we started there. And then we also went to, looked at empathy, right? So naturally, empathy is a very important quality to continue to develop. But as I said, at that time, it was believed that children could not, we've got a heavy wind, that was my umbrella blowing down if you heard something. Anyway, children couldn't develop empathy at a young age. And yet I could see with little conflict resolutions, I want to play with that ball. No, I want it. Okay, right there, you have a wonderful opportunity to awaken and nurture empathy. Critical thinking, observation. How does your friend feel? Oh, they look pretty sad. Yeah. Does sad feel good? Do you ever feel sad if somebody doesn't loan you a ball? What can we do about that? Well, could we cut the ball in half? You have one half and here's the one. No, then we don't have anything to play with at all. So how are we going to share the ball? And so on. So helping them to think critically about problem solving an issue, a social issue, an interpersonal issue at a very young age, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years old. Absolutely, you can do that. And that's the beginning and the going back to training in those thinking creatively, critical thinking, collaboration, communication, and then compassion in how you're going to share it. Empathy, nurturing the empathy. So now, of course, we've come to a phase where, science is really showing, research is showing that we're born with a natural empathy. You don't have to wait till you're, in grade school, till you can start working with children in empathy, till they're in grade school. And we saw this was the case. Wonderful little storybooks you can read to children. On a nature walk, you can ask, oh, how does that little ant feel when we get too close to it? Do you think it feels scared? What do you think it might feel? How might that little ant see us? I mean, there's teachable moments in every moment. So there's all these wonderful opportunities available to us. But we as teachers also, it takes time to sort of develop that ability to think, and to respond in those ways, because we are still caught in our learned ways. And we all know about neural pathways now, right? And they create our habits. We've created our habits. And every time we respond to something in a certain way, it's rewiring those neural pathways, those habitual ways of responding. So with children, when they're young, if you are continually responding and guiding them in these ways, their mind, their habits will become more kind, more compassionate. They'll be developing this natural empathy. Okay. So even though we all have this sort of natural empathy and this innate goodness in us, we know about now with science about the fight, flight, or freeze, that amygdala, that protecting ourselves. And if we feel threatened or insecure or fearful in some way, that amygdala kind of leaps into, action. And we either feel, the flight, fight, or freeze. So we either withdraw and protect, or we freeze, we just can't really respond, or we fight, and it brings out those more aggression, to protect. So what we started to see was that, of course, the teacher is pivotal in a classroom. The parents are the teachers in the home, right? Pivotal in guiding and nurturing these wonderful qualities. So to create and hold a safe space is extremely important, right? To be like a protector for the group, but guiding them and supporting them and nurturing their qualities to come out, to develop. So with the school, just to jump back to, we started with these things, these, interconnection, empathy, and exploring those. And then I started to notice, and especially after we created the grade schools, and we started with the kindergarten, first grade, and then kept growing up to sixth grade ultimately. But what I started to notice was when we started our elementary school in '96, and I would go into the classrooms and I would give little lessons on, maybe gratitude and, some aspect of kindness, maybe once or twice a week. It wasn't enough. That wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to create a very sustainable, what I would say sustainable, development of those qualities. And then I realized that, also what Lama Yeshe had said, to bring all those, basically those domains of learning together, right? Not separate, but bring it all together. Lama said, there is a profound knowledge and wisdom existing everywhere. What is lacking is the universal language which universal people can understand scientifically, logically. One subject contains the essence of religion, philosophy, psychology, all contained in the whole. These all have to exist simultaneously without separation. Education should bring everything together, not separate them. So this is a big concept. That's a massive goal and mission. And how was I going to do this? So number one, I realized the teacher is pivotal. This is teachable moments in every moment. Number two, that it wasn't enough to separate and just come in with a nice, as far as sustainability, a nice little activity around kindness. It needed to be integrated. And just as I saw back in the preschool years, just exploring cause and effect production, made a change in the children's awareness. It opened up their awareness, and they could see naturally what arose was this sense of gratitude, right? So if we taught from the perspective of the way things exist interconnectedly, then what would naturally start to be nurtured and would arise would be a lot of those very wonderful qualities, including compassion. So why not teach from that perspective? Curriculum can be designed and created any way that you choose, in fact. Especially, if you have your own program, it gives you the freedom to do that. And that's why we created our own, of course, program where we had that freedom. because what we were doing was something that hadn't been done before. We were not teaching Buddhism. We were taking the essence, as Lama said. The essence. It's not religion, actually. It's the essence of what all religions teach and all cultures have, this wisdom and this compassion. And to put it into that universal language. So as I started to look at, okay, what does it take to really awaken from the side of the child? You have to start where the child's at. And in essence, it's about me. It's all about me. That's how we tend to be, take care of number one. So start where they're acting, but explore the question of what is it that motivates our actions? What is it that triggers our emotions to arise? In essence, it's a wish in every moment to be happy, to feel good, right? Even when we're angry, it's a wish to feel good. Happiness. And we all share that same. So it came with a big question. What do I really want? Okay, I want that truck, or I want that candy, or I want that. What is it that we really want from those things and in every moment? In essence, it's happiness. But we would start the year like that. And now, and we would ask the children, what kind of a classroom do you really want to come to each day? Okay. And they would come up with things like kind, friends, hugs, sharing, happy, all these things. And when I started traveling and teaching this program around the world, and I'd ask the people in the program for this step one, what kind of a home do you really want to create? What kind of a workspace do you really want to create? Same things, kindness, friendship, trust, happiness. Okay, basically, no matter what age, no matter what culture, no matter what setting, same in essence. What do I really want? Same qualities, same. In that I call universal values. They're not limited by different cultures necessarily at all. And then I started to see, because one of the tests was Lama called this universal education. Is it universal? So that was another guiding element, universal. Is what we are doing really universal? So then from that perspective came the fact that how do we may want happiness in every moment, but how do we create it? Does it just come? So if we have, I use the metaphor analogy of, I'd be holding a seed, and if I wish for this seed to grow into a beautiful pumpkin, I can use for jack-o'-lantern in Halloween. It's very American, I think. So is it going to grow into a pumpkin? Is there a pumpkin there yet? No, why not? Because you need certain causes. What do you need to grow this seed? And so on. So, this thinking can be applied to absolutely everything, because it is the way things exist and it's logical. So how does this pumpkin, what does it need? Okay, and we want to create our magical classroom full of all these great qualities. Is it going to just happen by itself? No, why not? Well, he wasn't very kind to me, and he's supposed to be kind, but he wasn't. And so then we start to explore, do we wait for other people to be kind? Or can we? What would happen if we actually started being kind ourselves? Wonder what would happen. Would we starting to grow that kindness in our classroom? And this is a very good point to bring up. It's found in all different religions as well around the world, is the golden rule. So would you do to others, what you wouldn't want them to do to you? So do you like it if somebody says, no, you can't play with me? Does that feel good? What about if we just did for others? What we would want others to do for us. So we want a happy classroom or kind classroom. What about if we all just started practicing to be kind? Would that work, do you think? So it becomes like an experiment. It's science. It's logical. And they're part of it. They're part of exploring these things. And they discover, yes. So this comes to, is there anything that just comes like that without depending on a cause? And they can explore absolutely everything, right? So everything's connected. Everything comes from something. Our clothes, the trees, our food, even our bodies and our life, the air we breathe, and so on. So it's all interconnection, right? And from interconnection in this vast, from the tiniest subatomic particle out to the universe, everything's connected. What about, does anything not change? I mean, is everything changing, or do things just stay the same all the time? Everything's changing. So we explore change, how much we've changed since we were born, how much our classrooms changed. The fact that, the weather changes all the time. Okay? So this is another one from interconnection. Everything in this vast universe down to the tiniest subatomic particle is constantly changing, and that's explored. And you can explore that through absolutely everything, from math and science and history. You explore that change. And then from change, from exploring that, we apply it to our mind. What creates our reality, perception? Do we all see things the same way? No, why? And so we explore perception, because we've all had, children, 5, 6, 7 years old, they all know, even younger than that. Children at like 18 months, 12 months now, they're finding have what they call metacognition. And it's the ability to basically analyze and understand things on a different level, to think about thought. And so they can understand why one child, likes something and another child doesn't, must be based on a previous experience that they've tried bananas before and maybe it wasn't quite ripe and they didn't like it. And so this time they're not going to like it again. Even simply like that. So they came to the understanding by themselves through discussion that actually children respond to things differently based on their previous experience. And we know now scientifically that's how we work. That's what wires us. That's what affects the way we perceive things and the way we project our realities through those filters of experience. Make sense? And then from there, these 4 we call the foundational 4. And then from this, we apply it to transforming emotions. In essence, what causes those harmful emotions to arise in us is that our happiness has been hijacked, right? By maybe experiencing something that we didn't feel good about. Words, seeing things that we labeled as bad, not good. And so that triggers those harmful emotions to arise. That fight, flight, or freeze, that amygdala jumps in, right? And so we have these harmful emotions that come soaring through our body. But are they solid? They're constantly changing, right? And we don't all respond to the things that people say or experiences the same way. Why? Because of previous experience and the way we're labeling them. So we can start to work with our emotions, and we develop tools and different tools for children and families to use and individuals to use to help to transform those emotions. To remember, they're not solid, They're constantly changing. And then applying that to all beings. Again, going back to explore those, just understanding from that basis of those steps that have come before and that reasonings come before, to empathy, that we're all in the same boat. And that we are so fortunate compared with so many that we've depended upon for all our everything, for our food, for our clothing, for everything. And then we go through to, okay, not only empathy and for the animals, as empathy for the animals too, but actually doing something about it to help those in need, because we can all resonate with their experiences, okay? And that resonating with others' experiences, because we're all in this boat together if we really think about it and see through those filters, that we're all in the same boat together. And so then develop that compassion, and we're empowered, we'll do something about it. So in a nutshell, that's it. And I've almost out of time here. I've got to allow some time in case there's some questions. So sorry for talking so long.
Thank you, Pam, for this wonderful, wonderful presentation. Real CCC program is so inspiring. Yes, I do have some questions, and I see there are some others coming in. The first one is asking if there has been any sort of follow-up or tracking some of the students in their adult life, and see check on the impact or implications that this kind of education has had throughout their teenager years and adulthood. Has there been any kind of study in that sense?
Yeah, so it's just sort of grassroots study. It's us checking back in with them, with the children, with alumni, students. Now, many of them are in their 30s, 20s, 30s. And so to really explore and find out from them, how was, what, when you think back to Tara, what was helpful for you about being at Tara? And absolutely, they say things, yes, it's really helped me to develop more empathy. And I see that helps me in my life generally and in my workplace. So yes, but it would be good to do a more formal study. And we're always wanting to do this. It's just different elements we have to pull together to get that done.
Thank you. Another question here, it says, do you, by questioning, let the children experience everything to make their own conclusions? Or are there moments that you add also information, for example, fight, flight, freeze mode, or do you just allow them to get into their own conclusions?
Yeah, so it really depends on the age of the child, and it depends on the kind of discussion we're having. But generally, it's just following logic. And then they can also intersperse their logic. I mean, it's about them thinking logically about things, right? So we ask the questions, they think about it, they ask questions. And so it's a dialogue, but really it's their own examining.
Okay, thank you. Ooh, many questions coming in. Another one says, how do you help a child who is experiencing anger? Anger. How do you help him, her?
Yeah. So that's something we all experience, right? At some time or other. If you don't, I'm really impressed. Anyways, so we have tools, and one of the things is to set up a peace place. And that's a place that children set up as well. And they'll put things in there that help them. So we approach anger with the other harmful emotions as something that we'd like to be able to transform. We'd like to be able to, breathe through it or get rid of it. And so they have a space where they can go and do that. They can work it out. They can breathe it out. We've got a lot of different tools we can recommend that they can use to help to just wait until that anger subsides. It might be that they scribble on paper, rip it up, throw it away and think they're throwing away their anger. They could go outside even and use a space outside to sort of jump up and down and scream or bang on something if it's really visceral, if it's in their body and they need to pound it out. They can do that. But there's also a place that they set up for being able to notice when they start to notice when those emotions are arising, where they can go and take space. It's like getting space from it. And they can go into their room, maybe a little peace place set up there where they can, they can also scream and yell if they want. So different tools. There's also, we have little booklets about making power, we call power beads, which, just breathing, moving one bead at a time, breathing in. The opposite to anger, we say, is patience. It's the color white. We can breathe in, fill up with all that white, powerful energy, and breathe out gray clouds of anger. Just breathe it out. And so, a lot of little tools like that that help them to be able to just give some space until they work it out. But we don't talk about anger as being bad. We say it's, we all have those emotions that arise. We don't love them. They get in the way of our happiness. But it's like, when the clouds move in front of the sun, those emotions are constantly changing. Just blow them out, get rid of them, and find your peaceful place again with the sunshiny qualities. So it's a bit like that.
Great, thank you. Okay, maybe we have time for one more. Many questions are coming, but here is one that I think is going to be useful for everybody. And they want to know if you are doing also any kind of work with parents, or if it's possible that this kind of education may generate any conflict between kids and parents if they are not aware of the program. How do you deal with that at school?
Yes, so that's an interesting question. Especially, we have some underlying rules at Tara, which is a basic, not harming anything and not harming any living being, not harming ourselves or others. Okay. And so that can lead to things like, certain cultural and familial traditions where, say fishing, for instance, right? That's a pretty common one. So we don't encroach on that because what we might do or might be part, of our program is when we might be talking about the ocean and the sea animals. And we'll talk about how, the children start to develop empathy for the animals and connection with them, right? But they don't, but we don't say, well, it's not good to fish, because some people, it's their livelihood, right? Some people, it's, what they like to do with their dads, for the children, or the dads like to take their children fishing. It's a way to bond with them. That's the family's decision. That's what they do. That's their culture and their choice. So we don't encroach on that. But we still develop, they develop empathy for the sea creatures. And if they decide that they don't want to, kill animals or whatever, then that comes from the child. But, that's the thing, that's the one thing that is more sensitive, I think, with those Tara rules. But as I said, we don't take that step over to the family in that way. We're very careful about that.
All right. Thank you so much. There are many other questions in the chat, and if I may, I would suggest everybody to find Creating Compassionate Cultures in their Facebook page and also on their websites, and you will be able to find much more information about the program, which is absolutely fascinating. I was exploring the program long ago, and it's absolutely fascinating, and there are so many nuggets of wisdom to take from the experiences they share from the school also. I'm sorry we don't have more time. We could be here long and long listening and learning from you. So we are so grateful for your time and for your sharing with all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ceci, and thank you. Much gratitude to you all for all your wonderful, kind hearts that have brought you here today and being part of the wonderful FDCW series. I rejoice in all those wonderful qualities you're all practicing. And one last thing, if you look on oicctraining.org. That also has, we have training programs online. So if you're interested, you know, you can have a look and explore there, oicctraining.org.
Now it is on the chat also.
Okay,
Thank you,
great.
Denise.
All
Thank you.
right. And if you want to write to me, please do. And it can be at pam@tararedwoodschool.org. Tara Redwood School, all one word. Okay, .org. Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful
Thank
rest
you.
of your evening or day, and hope we stay connected.